Welcome, everybody. Kathi, do you have a count of how many people we have on Zoom, just to have an idea about? Okay. These are the brave souls who made it through. How far did you have to drive? Who had to drive the farthest? 5 miles? Everyone right here from Burlington? Nice. 30 people. Okay, awesome. So we also have, this is a hybrid workshop, so we have people online. We'll interact with both, but it's great to have some faces right here in person. So welcome to Supporting Your Teen's Career Search. I'm going to ask you a lot of questions. I'll introduce myself and some of our staff in a moment. I would love to get your participation, and the same with participants on Zoom, and Kathi will help me with letting me know what questions are coming up in Zoom, so we'll try to get both. Okay, so I am Kathi Terami. I'm the executive director for an organization called CLiC. We do career development for students in grades K through 12. And Lauren, introduce yourself in the chat. She is our program and development director who's going to be helping answer questions in the chat. So, career development, this continuum, this is interesting. I'm curious about some of your experiences with children in your household. We start in elementary school with career awareness, just letting the youngest students understand that people are working. So at that age, they might not understand, like at 5, 6, they might not understand why their parents are going to work unless you tell them. We have had volunteers go into kindergarten classrooms to talk about their jobs, and they might say something like, and like your teacher chose to be a teacher, and it's when kindergartners find out their teacher's working. They thought they had to be there. They live at the school. So it's just about awareness, what people do for work. But there's a lot of sparks of interest that happen in elementary school. In middle school, it's about exploration, identifying personal interests, and then going out and exploring. Job shadowing might be bringing people into the classroom again, finding out what's out there, not picking what they want to do for a job someday, even though some young middle school students may know what they want to be and do someday, but definitely not a time where they have to make decisions. And then in high school, talking about career preparation, getting ready for what they might do, which can include going to college, post-secondary education and training, or may not. So it really depends. It's up to that student. And in Vermont, we have something called flexible pathways, where schools recognize that there's an individual path for every student. So every student's own interest kind of guides their path. So it's not like you have to choose between two things and do one of those two things. Okay, so for our organization, just to give you an idea, we've been around for 25 years. We've reached almost 900 teachers. We've worked with over 31,000 students. Right now, this month and next month, VSAC is holding college and career pathways events for students around the state. And we do a career search workshop for high school students, and we just reached 5,000 students this year that have come to that workshop. So I'm going to give you a little taste of some of the things that we do with students, because you can do some of these things at home with your students. And I see we have at least one student here, so we can get your input as we go. And we work with employers on hosting students in internships, job shadows, and working with them to give high school students and middle school students experiences while they're in school to help them with making their choices. Okay, so I have a question for you. There's no right or wrong answer, any questions that I ask. And if on Zoom you can answer in the chat, that would be great. We'll kind of get a pulse on in the Zoom room and hear. No right or wrong answer. But let me know how often you talk about career planning with your teen. Is it frequently? Do you talk about it a lot? Do you talk about it occasionally? Okay. And rarely. So let me show you, whoops, what just happened there? Let me show you what students tell us. We ask students these questions when we're out and about at schools working with youth. So students tell us that 30% of the time it's frequently or often that an adult talks with them about careers, and 70% say sometimes or hardly ever. So it's just something to think about, that it's a really important conversation to have with your teen. There might be a lot of conversations around, are you going to college? And if you are, how are you going to do that? How are we going to pay for it? Lots of those conversations maybe, but maybe fewer about career planning. And when you think about the point of college or post-secondary education, a lot of that has to do with what do you want to do someday. It doesn't have to, and you'll find, I'll share some examples with you on why, but these don't need to be sit-down family meetings for an hour or 2 hours. 5 minutes to and from a game, a practice, school, just checking in and seeing. And I don't know with my own kids, I have a 21-year-old and a 17-year-old at home, their interests change over time. Your interests change over time and what you want to do, and it's the same developmentally with youth when they're in elementary school. It's what they see and experience. It's what, maybe what they learn in a classroom, maybe what they have as like dress up at preschool, things like that, a doctor, a nurse, a police officer, a firefighter. And then as they get older, they're starting to think about their interests, and they want to be a disc jockey, they want to be a veterinarian. When we work with middle school students, over the years, we've worked with almost 20,000 eighth graders on job shadows. We ask them, what do you want to do? The most popular career interest of eighth graders is veterinarian, because they have pets at home and they really like working with animals. Do all of those youth end up becoming veterinarians? No, it's just part of their career development, what they're exposed to, what their interests are. And a lot of them, when we do pair them up with veterinarians to shadow on job shadow day, they find out that's not what they want to do someday. It's a lot more than they knew, and that's just as valuable, finding out what you don't want to do. But also at middle school, don't encourage students to make those decisions, yes or no. So think about little sound bites and having those conversations. I guess I didn't mention high school. A lot of times high school interests developmentally start to be more, how much money can I make? How much school do I have to go to after college? So they start to become more mature in that development of what things might they want to do after school. What is the image like if I have that job? Okay, so aspirations and interests. This is a lot of fun. So I'm gonna put myself in the line, and then I'm gonna ask you to put yourself out there. When I was in high school, I wanted to be an interior decorator. It's all I wanted to do. When I was in middle school, I wanted to be a chef in a Chinese restaurant. But in high school, everything was interior decorator. I would go into the guidance office, I would get, this was in the 90s, the Occupational Outlook book. It was bigger than a phone book, and you could go in and look up data. How many openings there are, what city has the most openings, how much money they make, and I wanted to be an interior decorator. That's everything focused on that. Graduated from high school, got a business degree, ended up working in a nonprofit, which is what I do today, and I've done for almost 30 years. I did not know in high school that you could earn a living working in a nonprofit organization. I just didn't know that. Nobody really told me that. I love it. I love waking up every day, and instead of a bottom line or profit, I get to think about people and helping people. That was something I didn't know in high school. So before we think about your teen at home, how about you? What were some of your career aspirations in high school? Do you remember? What did you want to do when you were in high school? Anyone willing to share? On Zoom, share in the chat, and Kathi, you can let us know if any pop up. Kathi, you have one? What? Physical therapist. Social worker, veterinarian. How about you? How about you? Veterinarian in high school, good. What was yours? Work on a boat. Awesome. So what did you have, like an aspiration to be out on the water or sailing? Yeah. Did you know like what work it would be? Yeah, huh. Do you do that now? We'll get to that next. Okay, so any other examples, Kathi? Yay. Art restoration. marine biologist, speech pathologist. So these are high school aspirations. Any others here? Politics. Are you a politician now? Okay. That's fascinating to me. How about you? Were you playing in high school an instrument and so that was, did you ever end up pursuing it? Okay. Right, right. Yes. Okay, we'll get to that. Awesome. How about yours?
So, in my freshman year, my friend and I did a project on weather, and we wanted to be co-meteorologists.
Oh my gosh. I used to love when the meteorologists visited our school and used to play Stump the Weatherman. And I don't think I ever wanted to be a meteorologist, but I love that. That's so neat. So just thinking about those interests and what you wanted to do and how you're relating to your teen, one thing that can be helpful is thinking back to what do you wish people told you? You kind of started getting towards that a little bit. What information do you wish you had? And for teens today, what information do they have? Who are they getting it from? How are they getting it? There's the internet, of course. You can search things. But I'm curious, out of all on Zoom and here in the room, is anyone doing now what they aspired to in high school? Sounds like you're not on a boat. Anyone on Zoom? Sometimes there's some. Anyone? No, definitely not me. Yes, you're not. Lots of no's. What? You do, so okay.
So I went to vocational in high school.
Okay.
Went to college for a year, decided not to go back to college my second year because I got a job in the summer. So why pay to learn when I could learn and get paid? I worked for a printing company, went to multiple printing companies, and now I own a sign company.
Okay. So I don't know if that came through on Zoom, but someone who in high school it sounds like career and technical education around printing and now owns a sign company. So really followed that path. But it sounds like you had a little going out and doing other things and coming back to it. So you are really in the minority for most adults that I work with. I've never done an official study, but throughout the course of a year, I work with hundreds of adults. I love asking this question. I ask it of employers who are hosting youth in their workplaces. It's a great equalizer. What did you want to do in high school, and are you doing that now? So that they can think of when they're hiring students part-time in their workplaces, that they're just figuring things out. So you're really kind of an anomaly. There's not a lot of people that do. And that's why it's so important when working with middle and high school students it's not all about what do you want to do for the rest of your life. And we'll talk, so anyone on Zoom, were there any yeses? Yes. There was? Okay, that's impressive. All right, so we have one on Zoom, one here. That's more than usual to have two in a room with me. So we'll think about that a little bit. Now, I don't know how you define success. We talk a lot with students about what does success mean? What does it mean to you? A lot of students, when we're talking about career success or success after high school, it's defined by somebody else, not by them. So it's often defined by like what an adult thinks they should do, or a parent of a friend, or maybe someone they work for part-time, or a teacher, like, oh, you would make such a great XYZ, and you're so good at this that you'd be great at that. So there's a lot of advice that students get. When I work with students, I don't really give advice. I like to give information and let them process it. It's really hard to do that with your own kids. I have two of those in my household, and boy, do I need to bite my tongue if I feel like I have the best advice for them, but they don't really need my advice. What they need is information to help make choices and follow their own path. It's hard to do as a parent. It's really easy to do professionally for me because I know how important it is to give information and not advice. We hear when we talk to recent grads and people early in their career path, their best mentors often didn't give them advice, really just gave them information. So it's something to think about. So success. A lot of students think after I graduate high school, I'm going to do this, whatever that might be, and then I'm going to become that, and that's what I'll do for the rest of my life. Like it's a linear path. That is not the case. This is usually what it looks like. And we heard a little, even you who stayed on that career path had some changes. How many of you had more than one job change so far in your life? More than 2? More than 3? More than 4? Okay, so do you see that? I don't know if I have a pointer, and I don't want to risk doing something. If you count those twists and turns on that little line that took me a long time to draw, there's 12 twists. We have data from the US Bureau of Labor Statistics to let us know every 2 years, they track this, adults in the middle of their careers have on average changed jobs 12.7 times. A lot of those jobs are full career field changes. I went to school to be a teacher, now I'm a massage therapist. Whatever it might be, they're often big changes, but they can also be small changes. And there's all different reasons. So when we talk with this image with students, we talk about people at different stages of their life do different work for different reasons. So it might be about money, might be about prestige, it might be about what part of the country they want to live in. It might be, do they have a family they need to take care of now and they want to be home more? So there's all different reasons people change jobs over time. And it's helpful for youth to know that these changes aren't failures, that they are part of your path, they're to be expected, and they're okay. And what you think you want to do now might not be what you end up doing, and it might not be what you stay doing if you do end up doing that. It can ease so much pressure from students thinking like, I need to decide by June of this year what I'm gonna do with my life. I don't know if you've ever heard, like, what am I gonna do with my life? Or maybe from an adult, what are you gonna do with your life? That's a lot of pressure, and it really doesn't need to happen that way. So here, I talked to a lot of people to develop the content for this workshop a couple of years ago. I mostly work with students. And so I talked to recent grads. So this is 2020, fun year to graduate from high school. Be sure to let kids know they don't have to have it all figured out by the end of high school. Paths will shift as they learn more and gain experience, and new opportunities can come up when you aren't expecting it. This person has lived that. 4 years later, they're doing something very different than what they thought they would be doing when they graduated from high school. And it's just helpful for young people to know you don't have to have it all figured out. It's okay. And for you as parents, it's also okay. It's okay for you if your teen doesn't have it all figured out. Okay, so some things that you can do. This is kind of fun. We do this with students. Have any of you ever taken a career interest survey in your life, like when you were in high school? Now you can just search the internet and find them all over. Back in my high school, it was pen and paper. So here's a fun one we do with students. And I'm gonna show you what this is. I don't know if you've heard of Holland codes. They've been around for decades. They used them when I was in high school. They still use them now. College admissions uses them to help students figure out majors. Employers use them for hiring people. So Holland codes it's basically finding out what you enjoy doing and helping suggest jobs that might match it. And it gets a lot at what you were talking about earlier. Doing a survey like this that leads to results that match what your interests are can show you things you never knew existed. So there's an acronym here, it's VSAC. The R stands for realistic. These are the doers, people who like to make, fix, or build things, do things with their hands, Investigative are the thinkers. They really like to solve problems. They really like to work with concepts and ideas. Artistic are the creators. They don't have to be like artistic, like performing or visual arts. They can be, but it could be people who like to design things, design software, design products. Social are the helpers. When we do this with students, this does not mean social media or being a social butterfly, but you like to help people. Enterprising, these are the persuaders. They like to lead, they like to make decisions, they like to be at the head of something. A lot of times entrepreneurs, CEOs. And conventional, these are the organizers. They like to work with numbers, papers, filing, keeping things organized. Now, if this is, I swear this is fun to do as adults, I recommend all of you take this survey. I've had a lot of adults do it. There's a QR code up here if you want to do it. It takes about 3 minutes. We do this with hundreds of students at a time in an auditorium. They all do it and they share the results with me. I'm going to leave that QR code up there and show you my results. You can see here that I'm pretty low and realistic and conventional. This is me right now, which really matches my job. And everyone who works for me, Lauren online knows this. I definitely rank low on realistic and conventional. That's okay, because I have a team member on my team at work who ranks very high on both of them. So we're a good pair on a team. She makes sure what I do is organized. Because she is very conventional and realistic. I rank high on social. I like helping people. I like helping students, parents, employers. I volunteer in my free time. That really matches my personal and my work interests and what I actually do. So I have a job that's a good fit for me right now. Artistic ranks pretty high, more of in an aspirational way. Like I'm in a community choir. I do a few things. Getting up and singing in front of people really helps me with my work, being comfortable public speaking. I do a lot of that. So I don't earn a living by being artistic, but I do pursue it in other areas, and I think it helps my work. So just last week, we did this with 200 students live, and they really like to share their results with adults. There's too many of them willing to share for me to get to in the workshops we do with students. They're really excited about these results. Most of them, I'll say to them, do you feel like that fits you, what these results are? And they're like, absolutely. And a lot of times their friends sitting next to them are, oh yeah. And it's okay. Some of them have zeros on some are all the way up on others. Some are kind of like level. They're not quite sure. They kind of like doing things equally. So we have conversations around that. Now, the kind of cool thing, when you're done with your results, you can hit the next button and you can get job suggestions. So like you were saying earlier, what jobs are out there? This is where students find out, oh my goodness, like I never heard of this. And look, this job description is what I like doing and I never heard of this. One, 2 weeks ago had market research analyst. They never heard about it. They clicked on it. These are hyperlinks, and this list scrolls and scrolls. They clicked on it, found out what it was, and they said, I'm going to look into this. I never heard of this career field before. So it can kind of expose you to things. And then some things might come up there, like here's CTE teachers, middle and high school. That's very close to the work I do. I'm not a teacher, but I work with CTE teachers. So this is pretty accurate for me. So anyway, it can be fun for you to try some of the things that your child in your home is going through, just to see, like, what is that thought process like? I've had our whole board of directors has done this, and they have great conversations now. And so now at board meetings, they're like, well, that's because you're conventional, and that's because they know each other now, and they understand that human resources personnel at companies, they hire people who have strengths in all different areas, and they don't expect anyone to enjoy doing every task or be good at every task. Okay, so for skills, these are 2 aspiring computer programmers that we had shadowing at a computational fluid dynamics company. They do things like software to how to build bridge footings in rivers so that the water doesn't erode the riverbed, things like that. So these kids are at some workstation of someone that they're shadowing that day. So I do have a question for you. And online, answer in the chat. What is a skill that you used in your very first job that you still use today? Can you think of any? Interpersonal skills, working with other people. What was that first job? Store clerk. Okay. Definitely have to work with people. Any others, or Kathy, any online? Yep. Okay. Okay. Okay, good. And Lauren, I don't know if it'll let her share them, but it looks like they're working on it. Okay. So any others? Any other skills you used in your very first job that you still use today? So a lot of teens that we work with, if we're building a resume and getting them ready to, like their career preparation that we're doing with them, they'll often say, I'll say, well, are you working a part-time job now, or have you had a part-time job while you're in high school? They'll be like, oh yeah, but it's not important enough to put on a resume. I'm not really, and so then we start to talk about it. So example I like to use is a student who worked at a pick your own apple orchard. I'm not gonna put that on my resume. Well, it's your first resume. You need to put something there. Tell me about it. What do you do there? Well, I run the cash register and I help cut. So we go, oh, so you have customer service skills. You have interpersonal skills. You are trusted by your employer with money. You can count change. So they start to realize that, oh, okay, these are transferable skills. Things that I might be doing in this job not related to my career path are going to help me in other jobs. One more question. As an adult, is there something you wished you had learned sooner? I kind of alluded to that a little while ago. Like, what would you now tell your teen self? Typing. Really? Yeah. Typing. Yeah. Are you a two-finger typer? Okay. Any others? And I don't know, Kathy, interrupt me if there's something online that people... Advocate for myself. That one comes up a lot. A lot of adults say that. I wish I had known earlier how to advocate for myself. Developmentally, that's a really hard thing for a teen to do. But it's a really important skill to learn. You might get better at it as you get older and have more experiences and gain confidence, but it might still be hard for some of us to do. But advocating for yourself, big one. I don't have any good, easy answers for that other than lots of great opportunities in high schools around clubs and social activities and student leadership where you can gain those skills. Okay, so just good things to think about you as an adult, thinking back to your teen self and how to reflect that to interacting with the youth in your life. So real quick, transferable skills, 4 C's, nationally recognized, 4 sets of skills that are important in all jobs. First one's communication, probably the one we hear the most from employers. If a person has good communication skills, that's most important, and that's oral, written, all kinds of communication skills. Not every one person who needs to be good at all of them, but if you can't communicate well, it's going to be hard for a company to hire you, and it usually shows pretty early. So we talk to students about that. Does anyone have an idea of another set of skills that starts with a C that might be transferable to any job? I tell teens it's another word for teamwork. It starts with a C. Yeah. So this one's a little tricky. A lot of people like to work on their own, like to work independently, which is valued in workplaces. But no matter what, at some point you're going to need to come together and work with others on a project, even if largely you do independent work. So collaboration is another thing a lot of employers are looking for, being able to work with others. I mean, if you have a sole proprietorship and it's just you, maybe not, but pretty unusual. Another set of C skills. The people who rank high on artistic are probably pretty good with this set of skills. You don't have to be artistic. You might not use it in art, but your brain can think outside of the box. Starts with a C. Yeah. So this relates a lot to problem solving, innovation, things like that, where companies really like creative people in their workplaces. This is a skill a lot of teams just teens have out of the gate. They often can look at a problem more creatively than we can as adults after working in our jobs for many years. So it's just helping them figure out how to use that in a way that's of value to the workplace. And the last one's critical thinking. I'm not going to guess this one because it's 2 words and it's tricky. It's a tricky concept, but it's so important. And a lot of teens are good at this and don't know it. We're going to talk about that next. Critical thinking, the way it's defined in the workplace, is getting information, research, observation, asking people questions, processing it, analyzing it, and using it to make decisions. So that's critical thinking that employers are looking for. Instead of, I don't know what to do, well, look it up, look that up. So I'm sharing these with you because anything you can do to help and again, it's not about giving advice, like these are the important skills you should have. That's probably not a great way to talk with your teen about it. It's more like, it could be things like, I noticed you're really good at working with others, and you can have conversations around that. Because this is a little advice I'll give to you. You can encourage your team to develop these essential skills by identifying what skills they already have. This is huge. Back in 2020, when all of our workshops were online and we had hundreds of students in our online workshops, we could use Zoom polls where we could ask students to answer a poll. So we had actual data from students where we said, how many of you already have essential skills? You already have some of these 4 Cs. Almost no students would say yes. And we say, how many of you have a few of these? More would say yes. How many of you don't have essential skills? Lots of students would answer, I don't. So then we do a 35-minute workshop on essential skills, how to identify them, gain them, practice them, and then, you'll hear this in a minute, tell others about them. At the end, we popped up this same exact poll. Guess what? Lots of students already had these skills. It just took 35 minutes. So we have all sorts of examples about, are you in a math class? Have you ever taken a language arts class? Have you ever been in a club? Have you ever played on a team sport? Oh, collaboration, right? I'm pretty good at working on a team. I'm a star on our basketball team. They start to realize all of the things that they're doing. So these are conversations, again, that you can have and you can encourage. Then there might be some places where a person isn't really strong at something and they want to get better at it, that you can find opportunities to do that. And that might be where it could be join a team, join a club, take on a special interest. And some of it can be in places that are kind of surprising. Let's take a social media example. If you have anyone in your household who develops digital content for social media, YouTube, TikTok, whatever it might be, that is not a waste of time. That is building all of the 4 Cs. So anyone in your household has a YouTube channel, they're creating content for YouTube. I have a kiddo at home on a snow day right now, and he just published a video on YouTube of how to solve a Rubik's Cube with randomly generated turns. Within a couple hours, 1,400 people watched it. Sounds like, what's the value in that? He is using camera skills, he's writing a script, he's thinking ahead, he's following all of YouTube's guidelines for the content, so he's doing critical thinking. He works with other people on developing his content. He sends it to them, gets feedback. He reaches out to his friends. What do you think about this? He 3D printed dice to generate the random turns. Those are all, so me as a parent, I'm pretty cool. Those are skills that apply in lots of different workplaces. So those 4 Cs can be hiding in all sorts of random places. So watch for those and talk about those. Then last, this is the hardest. How do you demonstrate it to others? How do you talk about it with others? How do you articulate it to others? This is really hard because when you're 16 and you go on your very first job interview and someone says, do you have good communication skills? And you say yes, and they say, tell me how. You have to be ready to answer that, tell me how. And that's a hard thing to answer. I bombed my first interview when I was 16. Oh my gosh, I get hot and flushed just thinking about it because it was so embarrassing. Like, I was not ready for any of the questions that they asked. I was a good student. I was in all sorts of clubs and social groups. I was like president of this. I couldn't talk about any of that. I didn't know it related. I couldn't use those as examples because really nobody told me, and I didn't figure that out on my own. Second job interview, 3 months later, after I took a semester-long career development course at my high school, I nailed that interview. Got that job, did it for all 4 years while I was in high school. Helped me pay for college. Help build my resume for getting my next job out of college. So makes all the difference if you can articulate those things. So those are things you can help encourage at home. Okay, so career options. The word occupation is, so an occupation is a job. It's something, it's work that you perform to earn money, different than your career, which is a long-term professional journey. So when you're thinking about how many occupations there are, does anyone want to take a guess? And this is the US Bureau of Labor Statistics. How many occupations exist in the United States? Don't worry, you can take a wild guess. Wild guesses are welcome. Anyone online, write in the chat how many occupations you think there are in the United States. Huh? Nothing? What? Oh, okay. Do you work for the Department of Labor? No, you don't. 35,000. No, we have like a winner here. It's 1,101 right now. This number fluctuates. I'm not gonna make people guess when you got it that close. It's a hard number to guess if you don't know how they categorize occupations. We talk about this with students because you don't have just a handful of choices, you have a lot of choices. In Vermont, how many jobs do you think exist here? And I always say to students, it's gotta be less than 1,100 because they take all the states and add them together. Some states have similar or same occupations. Some states might have an occupation that doesn't exist in another state. Like if you have ocean coastline, you're gonna have jobs that a state without ocean coastline has. That's an example. Any ideas? Okay. So it's 567. I'm not gonna make you guess. I mean, like with students, they're all over the place. Like 30 or 30,000. So we have some good guessers here. I don't know if you've seen the data. So 567, every 2 years they publish this data and the numbers go up and down. Jobs fade away and get eliminated just because they're obsolete. They don't happen anymore. Nobody does those jobs. And I think there's like a certain number of people that need to be working on the occupation for it to count. I don't know what that is. And then sometimes new jobs come up. I remember when solar energy was just taking off and all these new solar jobs came up. This is, of course, a while ago, but recent in terms of all of history, where students in 8th grade, we had a few less people interested in being a veterinarian and they wanted to work in renewable energy. It was really interesting to see, like when new occupations crop up, youth might become interested in those. So, there's a lot out there to do. Even right here in Vermont, 567 different occupations to choose from. So there's all different ways to explore these interests. There's online research. If you hit that next button after you do that survey, you get to all sorts of data. Informational interviews, you can ask people, what do they do for work? Tell me about it. What is it like? It can be very casual. We encourage students to ask 4 adults, what was their favorite job, least favorite job, and why? A lot of times you'll find out someone's favorite job is someone else's least favorite job, and they can learn about that. So just ask people, anyone. Workplace tours, I don't know if you've ever brought your children into your workplace, encourage them to go shadow someone else at their workplace. Just seeing how a workplace functions can be really helpful. Job shadowing, I just mentioned, internships. Understanding the skills and the training and education that are required for a job can really help. And you have in front of you Vermont's Most Promising Jobs. That's a brochure that is a collaboration between the McClure Foundation in Vermont and the Vermont Department of Labor. It's Vermont's highest paying, highest demand jobs. I don't know, I do have a slide up here with the inside. So we walk students through this. We do this with middle and high school students. Many middle school students have never heard of occupational data. Remember when I mentioned that phone book I used to refer to in my guidance office in high school, that occupational outlook handbook? It had all this data in it for all jobs in the country. When we do this with large groups of students, they get to find out those things that they're interested in. How much does it pay? How many openings are there? What education is required after high school? This is when students in high school can start to make decisions about, oh, that sounds about right for me, or, ooh, I'd want to make more than that, or, well, I don't know if I want to spend that long in school. They start to be able to look at the data. So this also, these colored categories are Holland codes. You heard me mention it before. Nowhere in this brochure does it mention Holland codes, but they're being used. We have here, do you like to observe, learn, analyze, and solve problems? Does that sound like some of the things we talked about earlier with conventional and investigative? Do you like to work with people? Social? Do you like working with your hands and with machines, the realistic, the doers? And are you organized and like to work with detail-oriented information, those conventional? So these are actually divided up by Holland codes here. So we talk to students about, what did you rate highest in? Let's look at that. Are there any occupations here that you already are interested in, or any that you'd like to learn more about? Now, this brochure is just meant to be a handout. It's got about 10% of the occupations in Vermont. So, you know, it's the highest paying, highest demand jobs. So we like to tell students, you can go, there's a link right there, that labor.vermont.gov/jobs can take you to all 567 occupations, so they can get all of that information. So to answer to what you said earlier about what other jobs out there exist, this is how you can find that out. All right, so to wrap up, influencing factors. What influences teens starting in middle school and through high school to do different jobs? Entertainment, movies, TV, music, social media, everything we mentioned earlier, their peers, school, family. So when you're thinking about some of those influences, remember you're an influence, positive or negative. All these can be influences, either positive or negative. So thinking about these are students shadowing at a radio station, interested in broadcasting in that photo. And then advice from the field. I interviewed about 30 people and asked them, these were college admissions officers, recent high school grads, recent college grads, high school teachers, guidance counselors, and I asked them, what advice would you have for parents? So this is my disguised way to give you some advice, because I asked this of other people. But this is advice. Let your teen initiate the process. Don't initiate it for them. Listen and ask questions. You have 2 ears, 1 mouth. Listen more than you talk can really help with youth. Create opportunities for exploration and skill building. This could be in your own household. Try out some tools along with your teen. It's really fun doing these things. I know I'm biased. It's what I do for a living, but I think it's fun. And focus on strengths. Remember when we talked about that VSAC code, the results? It's not about you have to be good at everything. It's what are you good at, and then find out what matches that. And those companies will find people who balance your strengths well and match you up on teams with them. So it takes a village. These are some of the resources we share with students about where you can get information. Your parents and guardians, you right here, other family members, neighbors, coaches, mentors, youth group leaders, classroom teachers, and school counselors, and work-based learning coordinators. A lot of high schools have work-based learning coordinators that have all this information to help teens, and their school counselors do. This is really important. It's like, as a parent, how you know so much and you can share so much with your teen, but really encouraging them to tap all the resources that are out there for them. was hard for me as a parent when my kids were making those choices because I'm like, oh, this is what I do. I have all this information. They did not want to hear it from mom. They wanted to hear it from a parent of a friend. And it can be really helpful if you encourage that and make that feel like a positive thing. And not, it's hard, but not make them feel guilty for getting advice from other people, because it really does take a village. All right, so I don't know if anyone has any questions, and I bet we're right at the end. Kathy, was there anything that came up in the chat? Oh, okay. Okay. So, okay, thanks. All right, so thank you all for coming. If you have questions, I'll hang out here and while they're swapping the next workshop. Thanks.